Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about F. Wesley Schneider's new Dragonlance, which was released under Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, one of the best D&D canon hardbacks of 2022. And we're going to dig into Chapter 3, Prelude to War. All right, now, Chapter 3, Prelude to War is the third chapter of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, but it is specifically the first chapter of the adventure, right? Previously, they've been talking about, the book itself, and this is pretty incredible. Like when you get to a Dungeons and Dragons book, they're going to be like, here's how you actually use this book, because there can be surprises for new dungeon masters, and there can be surprises for old dungeon masters. Like, what are people's journeys to Dragonlance, right? Some of them may have played back when it was released in the 80s. Some of them, and now they're returning to Dragonlance in the 2020s, right? And this is a very unusual dungeon master, right? So, like, a lot of people who played the old one, like, are in this, they're still saying, oh, well, I'll just keep running the old one, right? And they don't come to interact with, new, younger players, or they just kind of stay in their own, crusty, like, dusty spaces. But the book actually talks about, hey, if you're coming to Dragonlance, let's talk about your journey here. Let's talk about how you use this book, right? And then, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 also talk about the pantheon of Dragonlance and start to get into the structure of the world and how, the species in the world, how they interact, all these different aspects, right? But we drop into Prelude to War, Chapter 3, which is really Chapter 1 of the adventure, right? And it starts out in a really magnificent way, which I absolutely love. And one of the things I really like about F. Wesley Schneider's structure, right? Not just Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, but really kind of slamming down, a foundation stone and say, this is how you do a setting today, right? And one, you don't waste space. You have really got to be on it, right? Like, and so basically, the first thing that happens is our player characters are invited to a quaint fishing village by the name of Volger, which is run by Mayor Raven, right? And so the first thing he does is he's like, hey, you're an adventurer, right? Well, there's this dude by the name of Ispin Greenshield, right? And Ispin Greenshield is now dead. He was a knight, and he was an adventurer, right? And he was very old, and he died. And you are specifically being called to Volger for his funeral to celebrate his life, right? This is a really big deal. Like, what is happening here, right? So one, F. Wesley Schneider is saying, hey, you guys are out there doing your adventures, right? But someone else, this Ispin Greenshield, one person that right, has already passed. And the people of Volger, this quaint little fishing village, they're like, this guy lived in our town. And we want to honor him as a knight, and we want to honor him as an adventurer, right? And that means we're going to draw all the knights we can. We're going to draw all the adventurers who knew him, who shared, adventures and shared mead. And we're going to have this time of celebration. Now, this is a big deal because, one, it's saying, hey, your adventurer is a robust and important person, right? And they have a network of relationships within Dragonlance, within the world of Krynn, on the continent of Ansalon, right? But even more than that, it's telling them you're an adventurer. You're not a dirt farmer. And this is what I love about now Dungeons & Dragons, right? Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has really abandoned, and actually I loved seeing this with the recent, all the free-for-all in January of 2023. There was this, the OGLers, specifically OSRs, had all these people coming in to look at OSR books, and they're like, hey, you guys are used to and they had to explain themselves. They're like, hey, we know you guys are used to having robust relationships and doing some role playing with your character, but in OSR, your character's a meat sack dirt farmer, and you don't get any respect, or you're not really a person, right? Like, in fact, we use funnels, right? So your character is really some numbers on a sheet. Maybe you put a name down, but it really doesn't matter. And we want you to just realize we just want you to understand, like, this isn't really about role-playing or your character being meaningful or them having relationships. This is about cutting goblins in half. And our games are really incredibly superficial. And so they had to, like, there were these people who were coming out and going, hey, we know you're used to, like, kind of like a full world, but here it's just about blood, right? Like, which I thought was really, and here F. Wesley Snyder is like, not only are you going, do you have this previous relationship, and people are inviting you and saying, hey, come help us celebrate, but you're celebrating an adventure, and when you die, you will be celebrated, right? You are not some useless dirt farmer, right? You are a powerful, meaningful person in this world, right? And that is a huge, like, advancement, right? And that's why I love Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, is it has left out this, like, stodgy, only the dungeon master can be cool, right? And the rest of you are meaninglessly suck dirt farmers, and you're going to die in a funnel, right? And nobody will remember your character's name, right? Because this isn't about storytelling. This is about, just cutting another goblin in half, right? And this is a huge, like, advancement, right? So our player characters come to Volger, right? And Volger itself is beautifully crafted, right? It's like, here's Mayor Raven. Here's Becklin, this Knight of Solamnia. And Becklin is served by Darrett, who is just a general knight, not a Knight of Solamnia, right? And you would think that he's a squire, but he's not really a squire. He's connected to Becklin, right? And Volger gets to be shaped in that Volger is a quaint fishing village in Solamnia, right? And Solamnia is amazing. It has the Knights of Solamnia. It has 3 different orders for the Knights of Solamnia. And it has the Mages of High Sorcery. And it has the Mages of High Sorcery. And the Mages of High Sorcery, there's different orders of the robes and, all those kind of things. And they're like, slow down. We want you to understand Solamnia is for humans, and there are good people here, people that you should care about, people that will care about you because you loved a spin green shield, right? And it really is a tremendous, like, really strong beginning of just, and I'm just talking about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, right? And this book I have in my hands, and that, and 2 months ago it was another Dungeons & Dragons book. Now it's a promise against hatred. It's a promise against copy energy. It's a promise against it's a promise to exist and to say, we know that the OGLs, the OSRs, and the orcs bound themselves in time directly to the 1980 American evangelicals, and both OGLers, OSR, and orc are bound in time to hateful zealots who want to destroy Dungeons & Dragons. D&D Be Gone 1983, D&D Gone 2023, 2 distinct groups utterly devoted to the pure and utter eradication of every single aspect of Dungeons & Dragons. United in time, united in hatred, right? In my humble opinion. And Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen is like D&D forever, man. Like, this one book is precious. This is treasure. And the rest of the world can chase trash. OSE, Pathfinder, a whole bunch of retro clones that copy the original and quite literally seek to destroy the original, right? We had thousands of people who were aligned to both those games were shouting, D&D be gone. Be gone. Be no more. And thanks for your patience with me. I don't want this forgotten. I do not want this forgotten. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of revisionism now from the OSC fans, from the Pathfinder fans, from the Five Torches Deep fans. They're going to pretend they didn't shout D&D be gone. They're going to pretend that they didn't want Dungeons & Dragons destroyed, but they did. And that's the reality of it, in my humble opinion. Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, Chapter 3, Prelude to War. Really powerful beginning for a setting, right? And also just an echo through time saying, hey, Dragonlance mattered in the 80s, Dragonlance matters now, right? And Dungeons & Dragons mattered in the 80s, and Dungeons & Dragons mattered now, right? So go ahead and take a look. What are the people you care about? What are they talking about right now? Are they celebrating Dungeons & Dragons books? Or are they, determining how they're going to get something valuable in orc, right? All that's my humble opinion. I'm very eager to hear your humble opinion. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.